Got it now? Okay, good, excuse me. It's about 2 minutes after 6. I'd like to call this meeting of Chester County Council for Tuesday, January the 2nd, 2024. It's at 6:02 p.m. If we would, please stand and pledge allegiance, and I'd ask Mr. Gospel to the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing. This evening, our kind and Heavenly Father, I come thanking you for this day. I come thanking you for watching us through 2023 and bringing us right here to this very point in 2024. Thank you for watching over this county, watching over our families, watching over my family, friends, associates, so forth. Lord, we ask that you bless this 2024 so that it be great for each and every one of us in this Chester County. We ask that you, in 2024, bless our leadership in Chester County, bless our employees, and bless our citizens. These and all other things, I ask in your Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Guy. Okay, the approvals of the minutes of December the 4th, 2023. Need a motion on that?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of December 4th, 2023.
Need a second?
Second.
Second. Any comments, corrections, whatever? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Under citizens' comments, we got several we're going to be speaking on. We got one just for citizens' comments, Mr. Walkiski, and but we got some for as we'll get to, let's see here, for the rezoning. We'll go with that, and we'll start off with in favor. We'll start off with in favor of the rezoning, Bridget Grant. Ms. Grant?
Good evening, Chairman Brannon, members of the board. My name is Bridget Grant. I'm a land use consultant with Moran Van Allen, 100 North Tryon, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28202. It's a pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of Griffin Land Holdings. I think this is possibly the fourth time we've been in front of you, and we've participated in a couple community meetings that have been incredibly advantageous in helping us collaborate not only with staff and members of the board, but also with the residents to try to address all of the concerns in some form or fashion that have been brought up throughout this process. I know that staff has a list of all of the conditions that we've agreed to through covenants and restrictions that will be applied to the property if the rezoning goes through and we are able to close. So we appreciate your time and we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Grant. Okay, as far as against, we have Mr. William M. Clark.
Good evening. I know you're tired of hearing me. It's William Clark, 1461 Ashington Drive off Blaney Road in Chester. And I'm here briefly tonight, you'll breathe a sigh of relief, to thank especially Mr. Corey Guy, who has listened to us. We hear that everybody listens to us, but he has listened and acted, and I think he's done so with courage, and we are eternally grateful for his help. The compromise situation being considered tonight is, of course, not our absolute best result. We would like that place to stay a beautiful piece of woods, but that isn't, that is not in the cards, it would appear. And so a compromise is a compromise with somebody giving up a little and somebody getting a little. And I think older I get, the more I'll accept compromises than I used to when I was feistier. So I would say if this goes through, if the restrictions go through, which I haven't seen, but I've heard about them. I really believe our neighborhood will be able to live with those peacefully. And we certainly hope that they will be, that they will go through, so that we can assure other neighbors that we're going to preserve as much of the peace and quiet in the Rodman area as is possible. So I will say one little concern that we have, and that you men and lady are entirely in control of, that is compliant. If this passes, it is compliance with the setbacks and the thises and the that's. And I don't know how it's going to be to measure if something's 100-foot setback, or if a building is 40 feet tall, or what. And so I hope you'll figure that into your calculations, because it doesn't do any good to have it on paper and the 100-foot setback is 60 feet. So once again, I thank you for listening. This is about the sixth time, including the sessions that we had not before council. And I'd again like to thank Mr. Guy for his leadership in putting forward what could be a win-win situation for the Rodman folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay. In favor would be Mr. Reed. Ross Reed.
That's a separate,
That's a separate.
separate.
Oh,
It'd be still under citizen comments, but just a separate discussion for tonight.
okay, so you're not on the
Yeah,
rezoning?
Rob Reed, 3458 Hernandez Road. If I just had 1 minute, I wanted to, I wasn't able to be here last month, and Councilman Agee made a few statements that are inaccurate. I'd just like to clear that up if that's possible. The facts are that I did not buy that property from my cousin. Another fact is that I don't have hundreds of acres down the road where I can operate this business. Those are two facts that can be checked into, and we ought to be able to clear that up. But you know what I'd like to do tonight is continue to be a good neighbor and here to answer any kind of questions we can answer on behalf of my business. And you know what I'd like to do is keep it focused on the issues. Not vote on whether Councilman Agee went to school with Mr. Blanks, or not whether I've got, acres down the road, or I've got an existing business. I just don't find that, we should vote on that. I don't find that that's relevant. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, sir. All right, getting back to the rezoning part on it, then we go back to against Ms. Cheyenne Williams. You got 3 minutes there, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, council, and thank you for your time tonight. My name is Cheyenne Williams, and I live at 708 Valentine Trail in Chester. And I'm a member of the Rodman community and the manager of Jubilee Farms. I'm speaking tonight in regards to the rezoning of the area in Rodman from rural to industrial. Now, I could stand up here tonight and spit facts at you about how this will affect the community, environment, etc. However, I would like to appeal to you from a different perspective. As someone who has spent their entire life living in rural areas while working in the city at times, I heard a new country song on the radio a few weeks ago, and the lyrics really hit me. They told me the story of an old farmer who was approached by developers to sell his land since all of the adjacent cotton farmers had already sold out and he was the only one left. He told them no, that he wouldn't sell. When they asked why, he went on to tell them how it would cause him to lose so much, including the memories of his daughter playing on the land, the place where he proposed to his wife, went hunting with his best friend, and more. His final words to them were, "You can't buy that kind of dirt cheap," because of how much it meant to him and his family. I believe this is true in this community and Chester County as well. Some say that we need more housing, but you've already approved thousands of new homes just recently that haven't even been built yet. You can argue that we need more industrial areas, but there is an entire industrial corridor down Highway 9 with companies who can't even fill their open positions. Maybe this will need to be reevaluated in 5 or 10 years, but for now, let's keep the rural areas that we have left in Chester County the way they are. Places where you can let your children run, ride horses, go hunting and fishing, smell the fresh cut hay in the summer, and just enjoy the peace and quiet that comes with rural living. And as a side note, you are under no obligation to rezone this area for the current owners. So please consider this as you vote on this agenda item tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Got one other under citizens' comments, Mr. David Woskowski.
Hello, Council. David Wysocki, 709 Skyline Drive. Back again this week, this month. Appreciate it. I told you all I'd be back, and I will fulfill that promise and continue to. I am here again to talk about animal control in Chester County. I'm a weekly volunteer over at the animal control facility, and the staff there, I'm here to speak about how amazing they are. I'm not speaking as an agent for them, but I'm more speaking on behalf of the hard work and dedication they put in. I know many of us believe that we feel we're overworked and underpaid. I bet nobody in the room would disagree with me in that. But I would encourage you to consider the animal control folks. When you look at their 2023, they've lost a director, they've lost several of their officers, and for most of the year they were down to an assistant director, an interim director, and one staff member. So in particular, they've had a very difficult year, and aside from that, they have a very difficult workload, both physical and mental. For any of you that haven't been to animal control, I would encourage you spend some time there with them and listen to them and hear about some of the struggles they have. I think they do more than most people realize. And when you think about animal control, you think about, lost and found, but they're also running a lot of community outreach programs, doing tether kits to people so that people don't have to chain dogs, giving out straw for animals that are outside, running clinics, encouraging proper housing, and running a community food bank. You add that on to the adoptions that they work on, the enforcing of the ordinances, doing welfare checks, and then also dealing with some of the darker sides of what they have to deal with dumped, malnourished, injured, shot, dogs with embedded collars, and much worse, which none of us want to see, but is a reality in our community. Again, I would encourage council to listen to the animal control officers and understand some of the struggles they deal with and how they help our community. And I'll leave it at that for this month, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Woskowski. All right, that ends the citizens' comments. We'll move on to number 5 on the agenda, which is the public hearing. We'll open up this portion of it as the public hearing, which will have the third reading of the 2023-20 and ordinance authorizing an execution and delivery of an amendment and restated infrastructure credit agreement by and among Chester County, South Carolina, MOCON.
That's still a mouthful, I think. I think it's easier to say than the burnt meeting house.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and the reason for the name change is really because it all started with the Burnt Meeting House Cemetery Committee and the great work that committee's done in conjunction with county staff, and we reported on that this past year many times. But they've taken it a step further. They've got volunteers, they've got grants, they've got state support, and they've moved on. Ms. Mosley passed, and Ms. Mosley's been heavily involved in a lot of those meetings, but they've moved on past the Burnt Meeting House Cemetery and actually taken on other projects within the county at other historical cemeteries, abandoned cemeteries, and cemeteries that have great historical value and sentimental value to many people. And so this is just to allow them to have that name change to where the funds that are allocated and the grants and so forth that they get can be used more broadly.
brought it in. Well, that's why I say to be more inclusive of other
Correct.
cemeteries and things that would fall up under that committee, so I think that's a great thing. So,
Yeah,
A
we
lot of
wanna
people
elevate
don't
one of-
realize the rich history that this county has from the Revolution. We're in Ms. Mosley and myself are on the SC 250 committee, which will be organizing a celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Revolution. And we have learned things about the involvement and the significant battles that were fought in Chester County. And I think it's very important that we spread this knowledge to the whole county and take advantage of the resources we have. And that's the cemetery.
Yep, that's right.
anyone else? Hearing none, all in favor of first reading of 2024-1, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, moving right along to Mr. Hester and the administrative report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council. We haven't been here in quite some time, so you know I might have a mouthful tonight, but I'll try to make it as quick as I can. I hope you don't mind I call you David, because I don't want to butcher your last name from up here, but I appreciate what you got up and you said about our animal control, because that was actually the first topic on my list tonight, was to talk about animal control. And I'm doing something that I normally wouldn't do, but I think it's really important for council to hear a resignation letter. And you'll understand in a minute, but, you know, we worked really hard through some trials this year, as David had discussed, and some limited staffing. We built that staffing back up somewhat with volunteers, with our full-time staff, and then as well as the people from South Carolina Works helping us. But recently, we had one of our new staff members resign right before Christmas. And they turned in a resignation letter, and this resignation letter, it really was very heartfelt. And I think this is important for council to hear, because it's not always the working conditions and working environment. But I want you to hear what an employee who wasn't here that long, but long enough, what they had to say. And so I'm going to read this. I'm going to omit one portion of it, just that has to do with some health conditions and the reason why the person had to resign. But this letter is to notify the Chester County government that my last day as a training animal control officer will be Wednesday, December 27th, 2023. Jesse, I have to say, from the moment that I met you, I could feel your positive attitude. When we talked in the interview, you had me holding on to every word that you spoke about the animal control position, the future building, the team that would be coming together to better serve Chester County. You demonstrate such decency to all that you meet. I have watched you and admired your genuine kindness and empathy towards everyone. Your professionalism and dedication, your flexibility, are all pieces that have made it very difficult to come to terms with leaving this job. Quite honestly, I feel and there's some stuff there that I'm not going to read because it's personal stuff, but the reason behind why they're having to resign. But I really loved working for you as well as Laura. You two are amazing together. You both encourage and care about not only the animals, but everyone that walks into the shelter. And you both made me feel a part of the team from day one. I can only imagine what amazing team you will eventually have. It goes on to talk a little bit more about their personal life, and then it says, I'll be cheering you on from the sidelines. Thank you for everything you have shared and your inspiration to more. Your inspiration, you are an inspiration more than you know. Sorry. So I just think that's, that's the team and the leadership from the new leadership that's being built throughout Chester. And, while we hate for someone to resign and we hate, to go through that, David's spoke to that. I love it when people can say such positive things when they're leaving a position, and especially one that we all know we've had our struggles with animal control over the years and getting staffed up. But I think they're moving in a positive direction. And one of the things that is amazing about what Jessie has done as a director out there is that she's brought the community together, people and groups and that I never thought I would see working together. And you all know what I'm talking about, and that's amazing. So, anyway, moving on from that, just to let everybody know that's watching or listening online that our Facebook feed was down. And if it goes back down, you can always go directly to our website and also catch the live stream from our website, correct, Mr. Schulke? So there's a icon there. So if you lose the Facebook feed, you can always go to that. Next thing that I want to just give a quick overview on is the South Carolina Opioid Fund Opioid Abatement Strategy. The funds that that can be applied for. We did officially, December 15th of 2023, we were officially awarded $249,000 as a county towards opioid abatement strategy. Kristen Gibson, who is the executive director for Hazel Pittman, she is our program manager. She will handle all the quarterly and annually reporting with regard to these funds. The sheriff herself, the sheriff, Kristen, and myself have sat through many meetings with regard to this, and the sheriff and I agreed that Kristen, and she agreed to take care of the program manager portion. We were awarded $249,000. Within that $249,000, the sheriff received 3 different allotments. One was for $76,000 for a piece of equipment. It's a handheld chemical detection that his deputies can use so that they don't have to touch dangerous drugs like fentanyl. It will automatically scan and tell them what those drugs are. And that is a state-of-the-art piece of equipment. Where I came from, we didn't have anything like it. So that's amazing that Sheriff in Chester is going to be able to get that through that grant. $6,000 for detention inmate screening for opioid use disorders for inmates that are coming in the facility. And then another $8,320 for training our first responders. And so that's going directly to our sheriff's office. And then Hazel Pittman will get the remaining balance of those funds, and it'll be used for medication-assisted treatment so that they can bring in-house, in-county, a nurse to aid with that medication-assisted treatment. It will also go towards new programs and staff with regard to Hazel Pittman and their outreach in the community. This is one-year funding. There's 16 years available. We have to reapply each year, but we are eligible every year based on the amount of funds that were there. But this is our first year applying, second year of the program, and we got our full ask this year. So just an update on that. Next thing that I wanted to update everyone on is that Chester County government will have a float and the Martin Luther King Parade. It'll be Sunday, January the 14th, and that's at 1 p.m., I believe, isn't it, Ms. Callie? At 3 p.m.? Okay, 3 p.m. And so you can reach out to the city. The city's handling the, no? it's
No,
not.
sir.
Mr. Guy, you can tell who's
Yeah,
handling
you have
that.
to reach out to former council woman Mary Guy in the MLK Martin Luther King Committee.
Okay. I knew you had the inside track.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, you reach out to the Martin Luther King Committee here in Chester. They're on Facebook. Or you can reach out to former council lady Mary Guy. Her number's listed in the Chester phone books.
Perfect. Thank you. 2 more things, everybody. Regarding the county's legal service, I know everyone's had lots of questions regarding that. I have signed engagement letters with 2 different firms to represent Chester County on an interim basis. One firm will specialize in our employment and labor law. Another will handle our general counsel role within the county. Both are very familiar with Chester County and have done work in Chester County. And these engagement letters, this interim position that we've taken will give me an opportunity to evaluate and decide how Chester County's legal service needs will be best filled in the long term. And then the last topic that I have is something I sent out in the administrator's report back December 11th, but since we didn't have a a meeting. I'd like to kind of fill everybody in on that, and it's regarding a change in our economic development tier status. And so every year in December, the South Carolina Department of Revenue publishes its designation for the following year's economic development tiers. So each county throughout South Carolina is ranked as a tier 1 through 5. Those designations place every county, into 4 tiers, 1 through 4, into one of 4 tiers for the purpose of assigning job tax credits and job development credits. A county's designation is primarily determined by its unemployment rate and its per capita income. So on December 7th of 2023, they published their 2024 designations, and Chester County moved from a Tier 4 county to a Tier 3 county. So what does this mean? The primary effect this change has on Chester County is a reduction in the amount that our prospective employers will receive through the state's job tax credits. In Tier 3 counties, the job tax credit is $20,250 per job created, as opposed to the $25,000 per job created in the Tier 4. That credit, which is a statutory incentive, is applied against a company's state income tax, and because South Carolina is only taxes companies on their in-state sales, this change will have a nominal impact on Chester County's prospective employees. So there's a lot more legal stuff behind all that, but I just kind of wanted, I know people will hear the rumor, oh, we changed in our tier, and what does that really mean? And so I just like to give that information out there as well. And just for council's sake, we have on the front row here, I have John Marshall Mosser. Said that right? He's from firm King Kozlaric, and he's here tonight to assist with our legal services. Mr. Chairman, that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Hester, for that report. Moving along to the old business, under number 8 on the agenda is, under A, is the third reading of CCMA 23-12, Griffin Land Holdings LLC, CO, John H. Ross, request tax map number 10600-00-121-000, located at Highway number 9 and Highway 909, to be rezoned from rural 2 District R2 to Limited Industrial District ID 2. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve with a 5-year reverter clause and no entry off Rodman Road. All this is on page 30, so we're looking for.
Chairman Branham, I move that the third reading of approval of CCMA 23-12, subject to the execution and recoordination of the most recent draft of the Declaration of Restrictive Covenants within 30 days of the date of this meeting and subject to a 5-year reverter clause from the date of approval. A copy of this is in each one of your council packets, and the clerk of the county, and clerk of county council, and in which were provided to each council member on December the 2nd by email from the Administrator Hester. So all of you should have the Declaration of Restrictive Covenants, and I move that we approve it with this declaration added.
Second. Gotta need a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Killian. Any discussion?
Mr. Branham, if you don't mind, I have copies of these restrictive covenants that we can pass out to members of the audience, and I can also bullet point it on the 2 screens above, and I kind of cut out the legal writing within there and just put the actual bullet points for everyone to see, if you don't mind if I'll pass those out.
Great. I think it'd be good for the audience.
So anyone that wants a copy, just raise your hand, and Ms. Callie, she'll pass those out to you for you to review. And Ms. Lee just advised that it is on the county website under agenda packets as well. And then David, can you put that up for me real quick on the screen? You have a copy? Okay. Here.
Should be page 30. Actually, 40. 40. 40. That's where it starts.
Can we get it on our screen as well?
So I was trying to pull up the bullet points that I have on the screen. You don't have a copy of it, the bullet points? Okay. All right, then what I'll do is we'll just put if you want to put the entire document up for me, David, and then we'll just go, because all I did was copy sections 2, 3, and 4. And then what I'll do quickly is run through them if council chooses for me to do so. Is that what you guys would like, real
That's fine.
quick?
That's fine.
Okay. So everybody should have a copy of it in front of you that wants one. Is that correct this time? All right, so what I'll do is I'll just skip, and bear with me, but I think it's section. Because I have two different things in my hand. Because I cut all the legal stuff out of it. All right, so number 2. It says use restrictions. So again, I'm just going to hit the high points of things that, for everybody, because I know everybody will sit and read it as well. No portion of the property will be used for animal processing, chemical manufacturing, hazardous waste, including storage or incinerating, manufacturing of tobacco products, zoos, botanical gardens, solar farms projects, poultry hatcheries, government facilities such as correctional facilities limited to pretrial detention, septic tank service, communication tower, airport, sports, racetracks, fairgrounds, including spectator sports, stadium fairs, also manufacturing that occurs outdoors. However, this restriction shall not restrict the development of all other permitted under ID2 zoning in effect as the recordation of this declaration, so long as the development of property does not exceed 1.4 million square feet, which just to reiterate for everyone, that's the total square footage of all the buildings combined that in those town hall meetings it was discussed as well. Moving on to number 3 in your packet, the following standards, and this is where the important part is, that the maximum building height shall be 50 feet as measured by applicable Chester County, South Carolina land development regulations. The property shall have a minimum of 50% open space, which may include streams and buffers. Outdoor storage areas shall be screened. A 100-foot undisturbed perimeter buffer shall be provided as generally depicted in Exhibit B, which is attached here too, and incorporated herein by reference. A limited area along the property's western boundary may have a minimum of 75, as generally depicted in Exhibit B. So I don't have Exhibit B, but let me get one. This was an important discussion during the town hall meetings and part of Mr. Guy and Griffin. And if you don't mind, Mr. Grant will hold this. There is one portion of this property that the 100-foot buffer could not.
We've got it on there, but there may be some flexibilities right there, just because we have the creek buffer in the zone, and we need to maintain the 100 feet, and we have an access drive, so there's one pinch point we might have.
So does that explain that to everybody? 100 foot everywhere else, except just some flexibility in that, and they will use the most that they can for that buffer.
So to make that clear to the citizens, we will continue to have the 100 and the 100, which will be 200, but in those areas, we're going to have a little small pinch point.
That's correct, and so that's a minimum of 75, so you're only talking about a 25-foot change in that pinch point if needed, and that's in your undisturbed buffer. So that's in the existing trees and so forth that are there. And then moving forward, a building shall not be any closer than 200 feet to the nearest point of any relevant property line. So that's a 200-foot buffer that is going to be from any building, and that will include that 100-foot undisturbed buffer as well. Means of ingress and egress to the property shall be limited to Lancaster Highway, Highway 9, and a right-of-way of dedication shall be offered only to Chester County, South Carolina, to provide access to Rodman Park from Rodman Road as generally depicted in Exhibit B as well. A sewer line shall also be stubbed at the property line as generally depicted in Exhibit B and attached here too, for reference by the use of any such time applicable portions of the property is developed. A 100-foot buffer shall be provided on all perennial streams, and a 50-foot buffer shall be provided on all intermittent streams. And Mr. Vaughn, I think that was part of some of the Catawba Waterkeepers' new legislation that's coming forth. A pole-mounted light fixture shall not exceed 25 feet if the fixture is within 200 feet of the nearest point of any relevant property line. So again, that was a change from the original discussions, actually limiting those poles a little bit more. And development shall comply with all of Chester County codes and regulations. And then last, the architectural standards and exterior of the building. And so if you notice, we hit what can and can't be, what the property requirements are, and now the building. One dominant wall material shall be selected and emphasized throughout the structure and the individual building site. Materials that convey permanent substance and restraint are encouraged. That means brick, stone, and select concrete. The dominant wall material shall blend with the existing materials in adjacent areas of the development. And examples of unacceptable exterior building materials and treatments include exposed standard concrete blocks, prefabbed metal, sided or Butler-type buildings, simulated brick, simulated stone, and simulated wood and unnatural brick tones. Exterior appearance, roof downspouts, and drainage pipes on building frontages shall be incorporated into the interior of walls and shall not be exposed, and all buildings shall have controls placed on the treatment of related exterior windows to help ensure uniformity of appearance. Blinds and/or drapes, if visible to the exterior, shall be the same design and color throughout. Window enclosures shall be anodized and with a dark and subdued color. Did I miss anything? Okay, so, Mr. Guy, is part of your motion, and so, Mr. Monson.
I actually need to restate my motion because I did not include that we would not have any entrance from Rodman Road. I think that needs to be in that motion, that we won't have
I
any.
think that's
I know that's in the
here.
covenant, but shouldn't it be in the motion?
It
It was
it's
in the
in the
original.
restrictive covenants, so as long as it's in the restrictive covenants, I think we're fine.
You should be fine there, yes. And one other point, Councilman Guy, as you're restating your motion, my understanding is the closing is scheduled for February 28th, so we probably need to make that motion being 30 days from February 28th as opposed to this evening, just for clarity.
The closing is February 28th, so we need to make it 30 days from February 28th, which will be, I can just say it that way.
I think this is a leap year, Councilman,
Yes,
so I
leap
think
year,
it is,
too.
so we've got,
Yeah, presidential.
account for that 29.
Yeah.
Presidential vote, yes, leave, yes.
I need to take my motion back.
Yeah, and I'll restate it.
We don't,
You can just move to amend or move to restate and
so you can make a motion to restate your motion.
Okay, I make a motion to restate my motion, Chair.
Okay, do we need to, of course, the second on that, do we need to rescind the second? Who-
You don't have to rescind anything. He
You
can
did
make a
second.
new motion.
Y'all
Huh?
do I have to rescind it?
His second. He
No.
got-
He'll have to have a second, but he just needs to make a motion to restate his motion and
He doesn't
state
have
what
to-
he's
he
going to
doesn't have
No,
change.
he doesn't have to do it.
So I'll make a motion to restate my motion.
Second.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I'll second.
Okay, all right, so I move to approve the third reading of CCMA 23-12, subject to the execution and recoordination of the most recent draft of the Declaration of Restrictive Covenants, 30 days from February the 28th, and subject to a 5-year reverter from the date of approval. And also to include that there will not be any entrance from Rodman Road.
Second.
Got that, it's properly done then, first, second, okay. All right, any discussion on that?
I have one question, if I, just to clarify this right now before we get in here. Obviously, Mr. King family owns a lot of property right here on Highway 9. Has anybody talked to the King family? Are they fine with this?
Yes, I personally had a meeting with the King, Mr. King that owns this property, him and his wife, and both of them are okay with these restrictive covenants.
Well, I'm going to point out a problem right now. There's a little teeny piece right here that belongs to my brother, and nobody's talked to him about it. It's clear as a bell, Garner Agee, that is my brother. Mr. Atkinson knows that just as well as I do. And that has not been discussed with him. That's a very small piece of property, but he owns it. He's not any different than Dr. Clark with his land. So somewhere along the line, it's right there. So I get into this again. I can't vote for that because he's my brother. I feel like that's a conflict of interest. But here again, nobody's talked to him about that.
Has he talked with anybody about it?
I'm sorry?
Has your brother, has he mentioned,
I didn't even know it. I just now saw that.
was he aware of that also?
I just now saw it.
Okay, any further discussion?
I just want to say that I appreciate the council and the citizens in this area for having patience through this. I hope this motion passes. This really was an effort that involved not only some council members like Ms. Mosley, who assisted me, and I want to thank her for coming to and helping me with those town hall meetings. And I also want to thank the citizens that had their input. And with this, this was truly a instance where we truly had our citizens involved in this. Some were for, some was against, and some was willing to compromise. I view this as a compromise, like Mr. Clark stated earlier. But I want to thank the citizens for being involved in this, and also want to thank the council members for having their patience in this.
So I wanted to say also thank you for Mr. Guy and Ms. Mosley, your hard work on this. So that's really appreciated. I'm glad it has the 1.4 million square foot maximum. That way, this project can't suddenly grow bigger than what's been presented. So that was something important, and it's in there, and that's good. I do want to say about growth, you know, to tackle the issues of growth, we've got to think bigger. You know, there's so many tools that we can use. Y'all know I'm going to be a defender of property rights. I want to see that when you own land, you really do own it. You don't have to ask your neighbor for permission. We want to be good neighbors, but in the end, I really do believe in property rights. You know, we need to think big. We need to think about conservation easements. That's a great tool to really ensure that for generations that land can remain the way that we value it. And so that's a great thing. If anybody has any questions on those, I'd be glad to help put you in contact with people that really know what conservation easements are all about. I think this is a good example of government working. Just as Mr. Guy stated, there was a lot of community engagement. Thanks again to Mr. Guy and Ms. Mosley and Mr. Hester. That was good, and we do appreciate y'all showing up meeting after meeting after meeting to talk to us, emails and the phone calls. Thank you.
One last thing. Just because we did all this work doesn't mean this project is gonna die with me. So just understand that I will be out there with a tape measure to make sure that those property lines are where they're supposed to be. If this passes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to address a question that Mr. Clark had earlier, and this is a good time to address it since we can't involve the public in this discussion. But what I will answer is the question that, how we're going to monitor this. And I know that's a concern, but generally speaking, the way this would be monitored would be through the fact that Griffin Land Holdings would have to submit engineered plans for everything that is done, okay? Architectural design, engineered stamp plans. It's Mr. Levister's job back there that when those are submitted for permits, it's his job to ensure that what's on those engineered stamp plans matches what's within these restrictive covenants. And if it doesn't, then he doesn't issue a permit. That's step one. If I think there would be some real legal ramifications to a developer if they submitted plans, pulled a permit, and it didn't match what the restrictive covenants and what engineered plans were submitted, to the point there could be hefty fines and probably have to tear it down and restart over, Mr. Levister, and he would make them do that. So I think that'll, and not to mention that this one has everybody's eye on it, so I'm sure Mr. Levister will have a tape measure as well. Mr. Clark wants to make a comment, and from a standpoint legally, the chairman has the right to allow him to do that if you so choose.
Only briefly.
Well, sir, I want to be brief too. I hadn't eaten. There are several things, see, we've never seen this before. You have. And there are several things that were a part of the town hall meetings with an initial approval that aren't on here. One of which is that there would be no outside envelope of the building manufactured. In other words, you didn't have something in the back of the building that made a lot of noise.
That's in there.
Not on here. Another thing was that there was to be a 40-foot, not a 50-foot height of building. And another thing still is the lighting. I didn't quite understand that. So there will be nothing higher than 25 feet. Is that right, Mr. Guy?
All right, so, let me explain that. In any compromise, you have to, give and take a little. So I did have to give on the 10-foot for the building. I wanted 40-foot, but our ordinance will allow 50-foot, and I did have to give with, people involved with that. So I did have to give on that to explain the lighting. None of the lighting shall be over 25 feet. Am I correct?
Pole lighting.
Pole lighting. None of the pole lighting should be over 25 feet. So we shouldn't see any pole lighting over 25 feet on the property.
Within 200 feet of a property line. So if it's 500 foot away from a property line, it could be higher, but it can exceed code.
But I will, to ease your mind, I did research, and I also shared the research with Griffin Land Holding, and typically, pole lighting does not go over 25 feet anyway. So I don't think that's something that we would have to worry about. I didn't feel the need to keep pushing on that after I did my research on pole lighting and industrial properties. So I went ahead and compromise. I had to give a little, so I did have to give on that.
I understand that and appreciate the amount of time you spent on this. We do appreciate it. We haven't had that. Is this business about outside the envelope of the building?
All outside, any outside storage shall be fenced in, and Miss, she's willing to show you that. She'll be screened.
Outside manufacturing is also.
And no outside manufacturing. Yeah.
She's got it, but that's not on here now.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And compromise does include going from 40 to 50 feet.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any more discussion?
Mr. Guy done a great job working on this project for y'all. Me and him talked about it all the time. That's why I agree with him. He done a great job, and y'all should really support this man because he did hard work for y'all. And I want to tell him thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
All right,
Mr. Guy, I'd say that you have raised the bar very high for the rest of us. I appreciate your hard work. The transparency and the dedication you showed, the not giving up and working out the deal, you're to be commended.
Yeah, there were, I know we keep going on, but it's important. I agree with Mr. Wilson here. This is really, county government, at work, being responsible, with what's coming into our county and, working together to make sure that we have something here that we can all, live with. Mr. Levester, he worked, really hard with me on this. So we have a jewel in him, and Chester County, thank him for being the man that he is and being a good director here in Chester County.
all right. Here, no more discussion. All in favor of the motion made on CCMA 23-12, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm reclusing myself.
6 for and 1 excused.
I'm reclusing.
Okay, 1 recused on that. You got that, Ms. Lee? All right, so it's passed.
Mr. Branham, I know you, I think that bell, I know, sir, I know, just give me.
Sorry, they shot you out of order.
Yeah, okay, well, that bell was at St. Peter opening the gate for Mr. Guy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Get arrested.
You okay?
We have to maintain some type of order, so please. Okay, moving along to B, the second reading of CCMA 23-16, Melissa P. Church requests tax map number 104-00-00-026-000, located at 1843 Green Arch Drive, Rock Hill, South Carolina, 29730, to be rezoned from Rural 2 District R2 to Rural 1 District R1. Planning Commission voted 5-0 to approve. Need a motion on that.
I want to make that second reading of CCMA 23-16.
Second.
Second. Oh,
Second by Ms. Mosley. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote. Moving over to the C. Under 8, old business, is discussion regarding CC MA 23-14, known as the TM number 124-00-00-008-000, rezoning from R2 Rural 2 to General Commercial, GC General Commercial. Go ahead, any discussion on this here? This here has to do, Mr. Hester, with, can you explain that to us?
So the last meeting, council asked to postpone the third reading of, hold on, let me pull my, so I've got the number in front of me, of CCMA 23-14 until the second meeting in January. And council asked that this first meeting, we would have a discussion regarding that rezoning, but in particular, council made a request to me about reverters, and council asked me to look at the possibility of a reverter and to look a little more closely at reverter clauses, but basically the possibility of a reverter clause on Mr. Reed's property if he ever sold it or stopped using it for his current intended use under general commercial. And council asked me to do that with regard to what you're considering in front of you or for the vote at the next meeting. And you asked me to look at options to track that reverter, if that's the direction that council chose to go in. So what I want to do is speak first about reverters overall. And what I'm going to give you is an opinion based on discussion with our interim attorney, as well as Mr. Levester, and we're all in agreement with this opinion. So I want to speak about the reverters in general and overall first. And so I think that there's a couple of things here that you've got to consider. Number one is the legality of putting a reverter on a rezoning that specified that if the owner of that property sells that piece of property or sells that business, that it reverts back to its original use. And so I think there's a question of are we arbitrarily imposing restrictions that aren't within, that are more substantive than what the actual zoning allows. Now, you can say, well, we just went through all this with Griffin Land Holdings with regard to that piece of property and that rezoning. But back up and remember that those are self-imposed. Those were all self-imposed and agreed upon by Griffin Properties at town hall meetings. They're the ones who actually said, hey, we will do these things. While we impose them through restrictive covenants based on their agreement. And in this case, we would be telling an owner arbitrarily, well, we're only going to rezone you, well, we'll rezone you, but if you ever sell it or so forth, it's going to revert back. So I think there's some liability, there's some legal issue there that whether we were challenged on it or not, we would have to deal with. And then second thing, and this is a discussion, if you follow me on this, how did it get here where, and I'm talking factual at this point about the rezoning, but how did it get to where the Planning Commission voted it down? Because during the Planning Commission meeting, it was voted against and stated that it was because it was spot zoning. We know that that's not correct, that this is not spot zoning. It was a mistake that was not corrected at that meeting, and it was based on an interpretation that was not correct during that meeting of what spot zoning is. But what I would argue is if we start handing out reverters, like with this, that if Mr. Reed were to sell this property, it reverts back, and I would say we're guilty of spot zoning because general commercial has 19 uses, and we're saying that we're going to rezone, but only for this use. So we're actually creating our own zoning. And I think you have to also remember that why is it under general commercial? Well, the NAICS code drives that, right? So Mr. Reed didn't ask for it to be general commercial. That's what his insurance company said the NAICS code was, and actually Mr. Levester told him it had to be general commercial. So, you know, when you go back to that first one with regard to some of your legality, what happens if an owner, and I'm only using Mr. Reed because his property's in question, but anyone that you put some arbitrary restrictions on with regard to their property, but you've got someone that's investing in property in Chester County, and what happens if they build that business, they work hard their entire life, they build that business into something that is substantial? What happens if they experience a life tragedy? What if there's family tragedy? What if they have needs financially, something else? We're actually restricting them from being able to sell that business that they've worked so hard their entire life for, and for something that could help them to live the rest of their life in retirement, or to potentially pay for some kind of needs down the road. And I hope that makes sense where I'm going with that, that you're restricting hard work when you do that as well. So what am I getting at the end of the day? Reverters are good in our opinion, and when I say ours, this is a consensus of Mr. Levester and Mr. Kozlarek, who I've been speaking with on this. But they're good for for those that are seeking rezoning and we put timelines on their construction or their starting of a project, I think that reverters should only be used in those manners like what we did with planned developments when we gave a timeline. What you just put in your motion just a minute ago, that they have 5 years to start construction, or that reverts. That's a good use of reverters. I think when we start adding reverters and other restrictions with regard to rezoning, that we run into the issues that I just listed out. So what is my recommendation? My recommendation is to cleanly vote on, when this comes up for vote next meeting, to cleanly vote on the rezoning. It's council's choice to vote to rezone it to general commercial or not to rezone it, but to stay away from reverters with regard to that rezoning. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if there's any other questions anyone has for me specifically, but this is also council's time to discuss this rezoning amongst yourself. Mr. Reed's also here in the audience tonight, and I'm sure would be glad to answer any questions that you all might have as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hester, for that detailed explanation of that, and I'll agree with you on what you stated on that. So is it any other council comments on this issue?
I'll just say that I do agree with you, Mr. Hester. I appreciate that, that view. You know, I think reverters come about because council is trying to please a lot of people in the room, but eventually that's going to create a mess. And there's no way our zoning department can keep up with something that had a reverter on there 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So while it's kind of tempting to do it, other than, as you described, for a set amount of time, 2 or 3 years, to see if the project takes shape or not. Other than that, I'm in agreement. We need to stay away from that. And I've been tempted myself to want to do that because I can see where, if you're a neighbor, it would be reassuring that it's only going to be what it's going to be, but we don't want to put subset types of zoning in place. So it makes sense to me.
And I agree, I kind of, along those same lines as far as property rights go. Whom are we as a government to tell somebody, you know, one way or another, how they're going to survive, or ways to improve their life or their business or their family or anything? So I don't want to, I know we've bounced it around, and, you know, I don't want to muddy the waters when it pertains to people's property. And future, you never know what it's going to hold for anybody. And I'm not for, you know, none of us up here are to completely change our entire county in a negative way. That is not the case. As much discussion as we've had we're almost a year in now, as much discussion as we've had up here about trying to think of ways to preserve or help or compromise or try to come up with something that makes people happy. But in the end, we are government, and government interference in someone's livelihood, life, property is nothing that I'm ready to entertain.
I have 2 points. First of all, Mr. Jordan, who I took this seat when he retired from that, he put reverter clauses on almost everything that came before this council. He put a reverter clause. If it didn't do such and such, it would revert back. Mm-hmm. Constantly did it. You just got through making a point that might not be a real good thing to do. The second thing is, there are 7 people on the planning commission. I was here tonight. This failed 6-0. The planning commission voted 6-0. They listened to Mr. Reed, they listened to Mr. Alt, and Mr. and Ms. Blights, and they voted no. Mr. Levester was here that night, saw what you got say through saying make a mistake. I don't quite understand how I can ask somebody to be on the planning commission and not support them. If I made a mistake, I want to ask them why they made that mistake. To my knowledge, I don't think anybody's asked Mr. Raines, who is the chairman of the planning commission and a very knowledgeable man, why they did that. We are making an assumption here without asking them why they did that, in my opinion. But that's all I got to say, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Mr. Hester, you want to address that about the,
Well-
you brought it out about the, they had misinformation about spot zoning.
Right,
I think
and that
that's
is a
the
good
main
point,
issue.
Mr. Agee, that someone needs to, and Mr. Levester and I had that discussion today, and he actually went to the person on the planning commission that made the comment after the fact. Do I wish that would have been changed during the meeting? Yes. But again, Mr. Levester went to that person and told him that what they had stated, I think at that point, there was thought that there was nothing they could do about it at that point. So he did address it with them, but
I'm kind of slow, but for the sake of argument, I believe I would have gone back and had the planning commission rehear it. I think that would have been the appropriate thing to do, not come to county council to overturn their mistake. I think I would have given them an opportunity because we appointed them. I'm sure Mr. Guy's got great confidence in your man. Everybody's got great confidence in that. And I certainly have great confidence in Mr. Huff, who I asked and the county council voted. I think that should go back to the planning commission. I think they should rehear it, get it all squared away, and then come back to county council so we can make a good decision with an attorney sitting here to help us with that.
And while we're having a discussion, I'm not sure, Mr. Monster, you might can weigh in, now that we're already at third reading, for something to go back to planning commission for simply a correction. Not sure where we stand on that.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of council, I think generally speaking, I mean, you're already in the reading process, so you've got a disposition what's in front of you with that regard. Now, if you want comment, feedback, further input from any of those individuals, it's your right to have them come before you and speak to you. But you've already got something in front of you, so you're in disposition it one way or the other, right?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And my input on this is two mistakes don't make a right. I think we've addressed the situation, and I don't see that happening again, so my opinion is we move on.
And that is true, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Agee, that myself and Mr. Levester have discussed how we will keep those types of things from happening again, where there's incorrect information that's used to make a decision, that how we will address that going forward in the future.
All right.
We human, we gonna make mistakes sometime. We human.
Right. But it's sad to say, but we live in an imperfect world.
Yeah.
So everybody's going, things are going to happen like this, and we just have to deal with the best we can. And I think we've done that on this issue also. So the discussion before us has been discussed, and we'll put it on the agenda for the third and final reading on the second meeting in January, correct? All right. So this is taken as information only. All right.
I'm able to speak while I'm here. The second week of that month, I'm typically out of town with work. If there's anything else I can say while I'm here, I'd love to go ahead and say it now. Any kind of questions, Mr. Vaughn, I couldn't get you on the phone, anything I can answer? I just want everybody to know I want to be a great neighbor. I've been an existing great neighbor. I'm from this area. I want the best for this area. I don't want undesirable businesses anywhere close to where my business is. And I took, a hard look at the general commercial ordinance, and it looks like there's already special exemptions and conditional uses that, the ordinance looks like it was written, it's a beautiful ordinance. It looks like it's already got in place to address those concerns. And, Councilman Agee, not to make this personal at all, just state the facts. But at the first reading, you made a motion to recuse yourself.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Reed, the only statement you can make is anything that they're asking you a question of, and so I think you've made your statements at this point.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, so this issue of CCMA 23-14 will be on the next meeting in January for the third and final reading. Thank y'all for that. Okay, moving along to D, this is the reading of CCT 23-04, GC, Chester County Zoning Ordinance Tax Amendment General Commercial Regulation Conditional Use on the Chapter 4's -4 of -for 117, recommendation to add a new text, the General Commercial District Regulation Planning Commission voted 5-0 to do this. And this had to do with a meeting processing of deer meat only to provide all the following conditions are met. The structure in which the process takes place must be 100 feet from property line. During processing, deer carcasses must not be visible from public, for public view. All remains must be discarded in accordance with applicable DHEC regulations, okay? We, instead of going through and reading all this, they did put, which is, the new text is added in red, where the commission voted 6-0 to approve, which is on page 87. And it is the same structure as there, except what's in red, which states, however, automobile garages, no, this is, I'm sorry, I'm getting on down to something else there. But this is the deer processing that we're going to be voting on, which is the second reading of CCT 23-04, general commercial. I need a motion on that.
I move to uphold the planning commission.
All right.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Right hand say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Now we get into the text about the, as far as the carports and stuff being added on. And it is for the second reading, which will be CCTA 23-05, Chapter 3-3-107, accessory structure application, text amendment, recommendation to add the new text. And the new text on that is that, however, automobile garages and carports shall be allowed to be in front of a principal building by meeting the front yard setbacks for the applicable district. So we need a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion, we approve CCTA 23-05.
Any questions or comments or discussion on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, got a second, motion and a second. Now we go to the discussion. Hear no discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. Unanimous. Okay, under new business, this is the first reading of CCMA 23-17, Cabello Ramp.
Yep.
It's RAMA Tampa, request MAC number 079-10-011-000 off Saluda Road, located behind 2051 J.A. Cochran Bypass, to be rezoned from the single family residential district RS1 to general commercial district GC. Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve. I need a motion on that.
I make a motion that we uphold the Planners Commission's approval of the first reading of CCMA 23-17.
Second.
I second.
Okay, any discussion?
Where is it located, Mr. Guy? You know?
I looked at the agenda earlier, and I kind of, Mr. Hester may can help us on this a little bit, but I was trying to exactly find out where it is. I got some information on it, and I was okay with the information that I received, but the exact spot, I'm still unclear.
Right at the bypass,
Yeah.
and Saluda Street, and there's a piece of property that this person owns. The property in front, this property is right behind that piece of property, and he's purchasing it for parking and potentially, I believe, a small strip mall, if I'm not mistaken, in the future.
You talking about Bill Alto?
It's behind.
No, I
It's
think
behind there.
about the- oh,
Yeah.
I don't think, no.
There's a,
No, Bell's Auto's right here. This is the
Rick was
bypass.
right.
It's right there beside.
That's the gas station.
That's
It's right
Saluda
behind.
Street in Mobley.
It's on down
Is
here.
that close to that?
No, that's not close.
It's right after you cross the railroad tracks.
Yeah, the
As soon as you
railroad
cross
tracks
those tracks, but I couldn't
Yeah.
really pin down exactly.
Well, that's Stowaway.
It used to be
The railroad
Journey's
tracks
Fishing
here.
Supply.
Yeah.
It's off of Saluda.
Isn't that where it was?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Right there
'cause that's-
beside.
I think
If
Mr.
you go up,
Clark-
if you go up Saluda, as soon as you pass the Texaco station, the rezoning signs are right,
On the
right,
corner.
Hey.
right there on the left.
Council, if you don't mind, I'll ask, I can bring somebody up to speak on exactly where it is, what it was, and all, that way we get through this.
Yeah.
Come on up.
I couldn't pinpoint exactly which plot it was.
I know, yeah.
She
Y'all
can't
can't
cross
get
the
in the
railroad
brain.
track.
I'd also like to apologize for missing that last name up on there. Is it
You can
Ramatapa?
correct us on how to say that too, if you don't
Was
mind.
it
sir.
Ramatapa? What is that?
That's me.
How do you pronounce that last name?
Ramatapa.
Sir?
Ramatapa.
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 Well, I was
Said it
close.
right.
Yes, sir.
I apologize for messing that up for you.
So if you don't mind, just tell us who you are, and then you can kind of give a description of where that property is located.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. My name is Brittany Grant, and my address is 2098 Marshall Byers Road in Chester. So me and Mr. Cabello have entered into a contract. It's 2 parcels of property. One parcel is 079-110 at 14 and 79-110 at 11. The parcel that we would like to have rezoned is the 79-110 and 11. The front parcel is already GC, and we would like to rezone the back parcel to GC. I think someone spoke to, the property used to be the old fishing supply, Jordan's.
Yeah.
It's the property located directly behind it. It actually has road frontage on Saluda Street.
Okay, good. You kidding Mr. Clark?
It's my dad.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. That actually was, we call it RJ, I believe is the name of the business was there.
Yes, sir.
Got a motorcycle on top of the building out
Yeah, you
there.
can't
He
miss it.
died.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Figure that's.
All right, y'all have any questions about
I
this?
got you. No
Yeah,
question.
we're available for any questions that you may have.
All right, we got a motion and a second on this?
Yeah.
All right.
One more question. Is that gully that goes beside that, is that part of, it's like a drain or something in there. Is that part of your property too? When you look at it from Saluda, it's like a big,
So there should be, I think in your notes, in your packet, there should be a survey that's included.
yeah, I couldn't decipher.
It's sort of a wet area.
Yeah, I couldn't decipher.
Yeah,
that.
so there is a portion of that property that would be,
Yeah,
wet
I think there's
flood
a,
zone
yeah,
area.
I think that's part of your property. I know where it is, but I couldn't quite just pin it all the way in.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Before Mr. Clark passed, he was in the process of clearing that up and filling it in.
Yeah, it's kind of a gully there.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not a gully to the low, it's flat back there, all the way back to the sewage, I think, to the,
It's a train track.
yeah, but
Yes.
it is sort of a wet area back there, so that is, it's. All right, any further questions? All right, here no further discussion, all in favor of passing CCMA 23-17, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimous. Thank y'all. All right, boards and commission. Got the resignation from Orlando Fire Protection District, comes up on the county council's agenda here. Does anybody want to speak to that?
That's, that lady's been on that board a long time. I can't remember her name. to
Ms.
save
Price,
life.
I believe it is. It's-
Shirley Price.
Yeah, she's been there a long time.
Yeah. And,
I make a motion to accept her resignation.
all right, any second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting Ms. Price's resignation, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then we got an appointment to the Radio Advisory Committee. It also falls up under the purview of County Council. I think that's on the page 101.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone might make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion, we appoint Ed Hardis to the Radio Advisory Committee.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on that appointment? Hearing none, all in favor of advising, appointing Mr., was it Hardis?
Hardis.
Hardis,
Yes, sir.
okay. Raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote. Okay. Appointment of the Catawba Workforce Investment Board, County Council. I can't get mine. Do we have any applications for that? I can't get, come,
We do, we have one.
Leslie Brakefield, okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to appoint Leslie Brakefield to the Catawba Workforce Investment Board.
Second.
Second, got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that?
Who is that?
Let me, did they get a second?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah,
is
I got a
that?
second. Did we?
Just out of curiosity, how would you know that to make that appointment? I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just curious that didn't come before the rest of us, did it?
It's in our council
Did it come
packet.
before us?
It's on our
It-
council
it's in the
packet.
packet.
Page 104 in your council packet.
Yes, it's in the packet there, page 103.
She filled out an application and submitted it to our clerk to council, who put it before us.
I guess my point though is I don't know who that is.
Okay, so she's a volunteer firefighter, and she lives in my district. She is a, she is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right, thank you. Yeah, the I-58 is she the program coordinator, or what's her role there?
Director of Development.
And so she's out in the community quite a bit.
Like I say, I don't have a problem with it, but I mean, if it's an investment board or something like that, do they have an accounting background? They have some kind of background in investing money, blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of questions I have.
I believe she would be qualified, yes.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of her appointment, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Okay, moving along to going into executive session. The executive session will be a personnel matter regarding county council, personnel matter regarding county administrator's office, and personnel matter regarding emergency service department. Did I hear a motion to go into executive session?